Dear viewers, good afternoon and welcome to yet another edition of the Business X-Ray Show. We're still discussing and paying special attention to the issue of climate. And we're looking at it, from a socio-economic point of view, which can also lead into other aspects of life. But most importantly, because this is a business show, we want to see why it's important to actually think along those lines. And today, the element or the piece we are picking out of this discussion is the one of climate smart agriculture. And within that discussion or that topic, we're going to be looking at specifically the soil. So we're going to cover areas of soil testing, and we're going to draw an analogy between preservation, your pockets, matters of policy, and then matters of sustainability. But most importantly, again, like I said, because this is a business show, we want to see how that then translates into the money and in a broader sense, the economy. So in the studio today, we are privileged to have one of the experts in that area, and I will move to you, Stephen, just to introduce yourself in full before I bring in Charles.
Yeah, good afternoon, viewers. My name is Dennis Ahimbisibwe. I'm the Managing Director of Jaba Engineering Limited, where we have a division of soil nutrient testing for agriculture productivity, profitability, and sustainability.
Beautiful, beautiful. Charles.
I'm Charles Ochichi, the Executive Director of Enterprise Uganda. Always delighted to be on this show.
Beautiful, beautiful. We have Dennis, we have Charles. Charles is going to give us the context, of the money element, trying to draw that line between the discussion we are having on soil and soil testing, and how it translates into what you're able to earn as a farmer or as a player within the value chain of agriculture. And then Dennis here will tell us the science, but not just the science, but the experience, because it's not just your typical classroom or office person, but he has had experience with a number of communities, with people at the grassroots, interacted with them, and he will tell us what works, what probably doesn't work, and how best does it or is it meant to work. But before we go into that discussion, we're going to have a montage as usual to get a feel of what Dennis is doing through Jaba Engineering with the communities they're engaging with. I know he has engaged with a number of communities in northern Uganda and other parts of the country, including the Busoga region, to really see the impact of actually doing whatever he's doing. Now, Charles, we've always said before I move to you, to tell us what has caught your attention this week. But we've always said that we can no longer do things by default. A lot has changed. Even agriculture is now a science. But you can give us a bit of a digest on that before we go into the montage for 1 minute.
All right. I must say that one of the things that a business person must look after is the assets that they have. And one of the most important resources for an agricultural person is land. If your land does not produce the way it's supposed to produce and do so in a long-term basis, that asset is going to cause you problems. And when there's scarcity in the productivity of land, man begins to think, where can I grab more piece of land? Can I go to the game park? Can I go to the swamp area? Can I go and remove a few forest plants and then increase my land? So it is so important to recognize that land is an asset, and like all the other assets, it can get exhausted. But it can also be managed and maintained.
Okay, Charles. We're going to have just a little montage, and then we come back with that discussion.
And in Jaba Soil Laboratories is just a subsection of Jaba Engineering. Here, basically in Gulu, where we are right now, it is purposely for it as a soil testing lab. So here basically we do soil testing, then we also advise farmers on the right fertilizers to apply. We also advise them accordingly. Basically under this very project, we are doing some trainings on good agronomic practices and also climate smart agriculture, which basically taps on that. Now we encourage them, like for the conservation of our climate, our environment. One, we encourage them or we train them on the side effect of bush burning, tree cutting, and then we also encourage them to do the agronomic practices like mulching, digging trenches to conserve to conserve water. According to the project, we were meant to go to farmer groups of about 20 to 30 members. So, but then these services the free services is only to the group, but then the knowledge is for everyone. We do frequent field visits to ensure that at least, because we are dealing with groups, so we expect the group members, each and every group members, to adopt what is in the demo garden. And then we do this when we talk of trenches, when we talk of mulching, we do it in a demo garden. So we expect each and every group member to adapt. And now we make follow-up to ensure that they're really doing the methods we have taught them, they're following what we have taught them. Ever since we started the trainings, we have seen their response because we show them what is supposed to be done. And then we show them the side effect. Like for instance, the climate smart agriculture. We show them that all this, it's being brought by us, the human beings, cutting down bush, clearing out the bushes, and then charcoal burning. All this makes the green grasses to accumulate in the air, now affecting the climate. That is now we have why we explain to them the reasons why these things are. We have seen them pick up, and we have also encouraged them. For an example, they normally have a question on, does fertilizer spoil soils? So we tell them, yes, fertilizers do spoil soils. Just like, for instance, when you're sick, then you go to the hospital, you have to test. When you have malaria +3, there is a different medication you're supposed to take. And then when you have malaria +1, others you're just given tabs, others you're put through your veins. So it's the same with soil. Some of them actually, what they know best, they know the only fertilizers is DAP. Sometimes we do soil testing, we encourage them, there are many things we tell them.
Madong kumbete watika temo migwako ngomwa kichamwa wa chiak mabe watika tike jaba. What
we are doing right now to sustain our soil fertility and to increase our productivity, we are working with Jaba Soil Laboratory. They tested our soil and they told us the kinds of problems that we are facing. So because of that, we are not applying fertilizers unnecessarily. We apply fertilizers according to the same test results. The second one, we have opened up our lands for the first season, but we are not burning the grasses on our garden to increase availability of soil nutrients. We also ensure that weeds do not destroy our fields. We are monitoring closely, though sometimes we have pests and diseases that are affecting our garden. We are using the local means to control these pests. For example, we go and uproot that plant which has been affected by the pests. And the other one, we also use ash to control pests. Some situations we do apply chemicals from agro input shops. So those are the things we do. But we don't like using the chemicals so much. We feel the local means are the best to control pests and diseases and also to maintain the soil fertility.
Bebir mana donyeni kumbeda timu agadi ario beba group bebir mana donyeni tikaman.
I've taken 2 years now. These are the importances of being in the group. So as I was not in the group, I could just do things in my own way. I could just do it as everyone does it. But as a result of being in a group, organizations like Jaba has come and they have trained us to pick us from poverty. It has brought a big change to our members. We want people who are outside the group to see the difference, and we want them to join us. So the training that they have done with us have taken it to our individual farms, and every member is going to implement it. For sure, we have gotten much harvest compared to what we have been getting. Our heart is glad, our life has been changed. As you can see, the harvests in the house are as a result of the trainings we got. We have achieved a lot as a result of the trainings.
Diana chel ma neno ma kumbete ma wan ti group ni ma ia yom ye tutwal lo mema ma mekwa kumbete dong ngeyo no getie ki tamone ma chon chani ma nyugi kito mere.
Through Jaba, our mind has been transformed, and all members right now are able to plant maize from the way we used to do it to 60 centimeters by 75 centimeters spacing. The former way we used to do things was never compared to the new way we did with the Jaba. So all members are going to take the technology into their gardens. So right now, each member is going to plant 2 acres of maize this season with good agronomic practices implemented. Because of that, every member has gained momentum. Formerly, members were so discouraged with the farming because it did not yield much, but we can see the difference.
For the agricultural officers, they are also policymakers, the DAO's agricultural officers, to push this ahead, because it's a sensitive thing. At the end of the day, it will come back to us. So I encourage them, like when we go, we come to the district with the issue of soil testings, embrace it with one hand. Don't throw it back. I want to take this time to I'm really very, very grateful for ABI, because has helped Jaba. Since Jaba is an NGO, it cannot treat like to the local ones, because it has a lot of it needs a lot of resources. But then ABI has really helped us to get down on the ground. One, ABI at the moment has given us first of all, the facilitators onto the ground. Then secondly, since we are dealing with groups, we give them seeds, we do the soil testing for them free of charge.
Yes. Welcome back, viewers, and that was to give you an idea of what Dennis Imbisiwe here from Jaba Engineering, what is doing on the ground. And we are discussing the topic, climate smart agriculture, and we are singling out the element of soil testing. As you heard from the gentleman, in that montage at the beginning, is basically telling you that, it's very, very important as a farmer, before you plant, you need to know the kind of soils you have, because different kinds of soils have different nutrients, probably in abundance, and some will have deficiencies in certain areas. And that's where climate change, has in a way brought us that we can no longer rely on nature's providence alone to do agriculture, especially if you want to do it, from a commercial point of view. We've seen, of course, others trying to use, again, local methods, if I may call them that way, our native methods to actually conserve and preserve and ensure soil fertility and sustainability in that sense. But of course, we have the expert here, Dennis, to give us a bit of context in our debate today. And I'll ask you, Dennis, why is it important at this point in time, for a farmer out there who is watching us, you know, to actually bother about knowing the characteristics of the soils they have?
Thank you, Charles. The reasons why we do testing are mainly categorized into three, depending on the farmer, what level of the farmer he is. We have the first one, which we call predictive, the predictive function of testing, where you have land before you have not plowed, you have not decided on which crop you want to grow. So different crops require different nutrients. So you test, get the nutrients in the soils. Now, after getting the nutrients in the soil, then you determine, depending on the crop you want to grow, you match the crop and the nutrients in the soil. So you determine whether this season I need to grow maize, whether I need to grow coffee. So you can predict and say maize will do better than beans. So then you plant that crop. That's the predictive. The second one is the diagnostic, where you already have your coffee. It has signs it's not doing well in this, it's yellowing, and you're not sure of what the problem is.
And that's where most of us come in.
Yeah, so you will actually test, and then you'll be able to confirm that the yellowing of the leaves is due to nitrogen. It's not a disease, it's nitrogen. Then now you'd have a nitrogen-based nutrient for you to actually make your coffee better. The third is monitoring. I've already been planting, my coffee is doing well, I put in manure, I put in fertilizers last season. I want to see how this season it is. Because you see, as you're applying manure, the manure has nutrients. Excess nutrients is also a problem. The farmers know that the places where you have a lot of manure, you will plant, and then the plants will get burnt. They tell you the plant got burnt. So it is important that you actually also monitor, especially as you are applying manure, to make sure that you don't overdo it. So we have the predictive, the diagnostic, and the monitoring functions.
I hear you.
So for a farmer, when you are starting, then you need to predict. If you are already growing, then you need to know what I'm growing, is it actually the best I can get? Then now, if you have been growing over seasons, you need also to monitor periodically every season or every year to see what is the level of my nutrients, so that you don't over-apply the nutrients.
Great. Now, before I bring in Charles, I want you to help us understand why it's more important today than probably yesterday, you know, for someone to actually do those processes, test, you know, whether diagnostic or the other pre-one. Why would it be more important today than yesterday, for instance?
Of course, farming is no longer about food. It's no longer about growing to eat. If you plant an acre of maize and you get your 5 bags, you eat, and next year you again also plant another acre and get another 3 bags. It is still okay. Farming is now a business. You have to buy the seeds. The plowing, you are going to use labor. You have to buy like herbicides, or even if it is ash, you are using the local methods, you have to get the ash. So you are having an input. And also even food crops are no longer food crops. There can also be cash crops. So if you plant your maize, your 1 acre, you want 18 bags, you want 20 bags, you want 25 bags. So with that in mind, we need to plant with a target in mind. If I'm planting an acre of land, like the group we have just seen, when we are doing the planting, we told them in half an acre we are expecting 900 kilograms. And before we began, we are targeting 900 kilograms because
those are like 9 bags of maize.
Yeah, 9 bags of maize in half an acre.
Half an acre.
Then in half an acre we use our inputs. Then in half an acre they use the way they have been doing it, and they got 8 bags in our control, whereas in using their inputs, they got 5 bags. And the soil was actually good because for this specific farmer, it was only phosphorus lacking. The other nutrients were in excess. Nitrogen and potassium, they were in excess. In other places like Uganda, you are getting 5 bags, 6 bags, and our control, we are getting 8, 9 bags in half an acre. So one is for productivity. We want to know what are we targeting and are we going to get the targeted yields. Secondly is for profitability, because we are buying inputs. Even if it is local manure, these days you have to buy. You have to buy chicken manure, you have to buy goat manure. You are still buying these inputs. So if your costs of production are high, your profitability will be low. Now, if you test and you know I'm lacking this or I have this, then you can optimize your costs and you increase your profit. And then lastly is on the sustainability. We don't have land like we used to have. You know, you are here and the soil has become bad, you migrate to another area. It is no longer possible that you are going to move from your area into another region where the soils are now better.
There's still a bush.
Yes. So you actually have to use your 2, 3, 5, 10 acres to look after yourself, your sons and your grandsons. And it is the only way you can do it is by continuously monitoring the nutrients in the soil, so that as your sons come, you are maintaining this level. If you want to transition from maize into maybe passion fruits or into horticulture, then now you do other tests so that you are the farming on the same piece of land is sustainable.
Thank you, Dennis. Quite 3 important components, Charles, and I want us to unpack them in bits, because you're talking about profitability, actually productivity, profitability, and sustainability. And you're the money man on the panel. I wanted us to start with the aspect of productivity. We'll get back to the rest in view of what Dennis has spoken, and why, especially those who are watching this show with a business mind, because there are quite many now. If you look at sectors like coffee, last show we had the gentleman from the coffee subsector. If you look at people that sit within the grain subsector, everyone is trying to look at how do I bolster that component.
All right, starting with the productivity, let me first say this about what Dennis has just shared with us. Farmers have always seen farming, when they are looking at risks, they look at almost only one item, rainfall.
Yeah.
They just feel, will the rains be okay this year? Will the rains be bad this year? How can I time my rains well? And now they are beginning to appreciate the meteorological pronouncements. That is just one of those areas where you need knowledge and skills. And you need to listen to the meteorologist. The other aspect is this plant you are going to plant is going to get nutrients from the soil. A plant is not migratory. Where you dropped it, that's where it's going to grow up from. Put on the leaves, put on the flowers, give you the seed or the thing that you want to eat, or the fruit. Now that plant, if that place receives water, if you've done the weeding, but where it is located, it is starving, your productivity will be low. Productivity is relating inputs with output. You put in so much in terms of labor, in terms of seed, in terms of whatever, the output is suboptimal because you never looked at another angle to output, which is the food reservoir. Let me give you an example. In northern Uganda, the montage we're looking at there, they now have accepted a commercial crop called sunflower. A sunflower is a heavy feeder. The leaves are large, the stem is large, the head where the seeds is also large.
Huge.
But then you have only the head. The rest of this part of the plant, you don't use it. If you do not know how to utilize that and get that to go back to the soil and return that volume of nutrients that have been brought from the soil to the surface, that soil has lost all that nutrient that has been used to produce the leaves, the stem, and then these parts that are holding the seed. So productivity is one of the things in business, any business person, including agriculturalists, must pay attention to. And much more so today, because The developed world we are talking about has migrated from having agriculture as the major employer to now maybe having only 3 or 4% of their people in what? In agriculture. But the volume of output they put out of that, Israel will give the entire world oranges. The entire world, both in terms of fruit and also in terms of juice. But the land mass is so small. That is where the power productivity comes in. And until we begin to appreciate that whatever we produce without efficiency and productivity, we are going to compete with Israel. It will not be long before we'll just be watching and saying, no. How can we beg these fellows to say, please give some room for Africa? In the business arena, there is no room for somebody else. Winner takes all.
Yeah, very fun.
Until the winner has been fully served and all their stocks are exhausted, will you then look at the next supplier?
Great. I want to come back to you, Dennis, on the issue of productivity before we move to sustainability and profitability. How do you relate that to, because right now we're contending with scarcity of land, because land is an inelastic resource. You know, if Uganda is assuming 1 million square miles, our land mass, it can't be 2 million square miles tomorrow. So how does that feed into, you know, managing the challenge of land that we have as a country, which is shrinking vis-a-vis the number of people that we have, because we are among the fastest growing countries in sub-Saharan Africa. That's a fact, and we're a young population, meaning we are still growing for another, you know, decades to come. So how does that correlate?
Yeah, the issue of land actually not expanding, it is actually shrinking. Because like you rightly said, the population is growing. So it means that the available land for use is shrinking. The only way out is to increase productivity per unit area. And like Charles has rightly said, productivity involves both inputs and then outputs. So we have to reduce the inputs we are putting in while increasing the output that we are getting out. Now, there are 3 or 4 inputs for the productivity of the crops, and that is, 1 is the actual land where you're growing. Number 2 is the nutrients that are being taken out, that are being taken. Then number 3 is the herbicides and the environment, pests and diseases, and then the agricultural practices that you are applying on the farm. So of all these things, it is the nutrients that you cannot look at, you cannot see, you cannot read. The other things, the researchers are telling us this pesticide will work like this, this disease will have like this. But for the nutrients, apart from the physical characteristics of the soil and maybe the microorganisms, you know, when I dig and I find this land might be fertile. Now, for the actual nutrients, you have to test. Because what you cannot measure, you don't know it.
You don't know it.
So you actually have to test for you to be able to know it.
Beautiful.
We have, the Ministry of Agriculture has been trying to promote the use of fertilizers. Because when you look at, there is a correlation between the use of fertilizers and the productivity all around Africa. So, and we are the least users of fertilizers in the East African region. This is because we actually do not believe that our soils are as bad. So the only way for us to know that our soils are bad is for us to test. And you tell these people, your pH is low, your nitrogen is low, and then when you apply the nutrients, it sinks in much deeper than when you just bring a fertilizer and say, this fertilizer works, and then it works for this one. When somebody else takes it, it does not work. Then he thinks he used the fake fertilizer when actually it was a wrong type for his specific garden. So we need to look at agriculture as a business.
Yes.
All these inputs we are putting in, we have to measure them. And before we plant, we need to have a target of what to expect. If I have an acre of coffee, I need to know I have 450 plants. They are 4 or 5 years, and I expect so many tons of coffee at the end of the season.
Beautiful. Now, in the discussion we are having, of course, the aspect of sustainability is very important. Because if you talk about climate change and you know, green agriculture, sustainability becomes an important element. I want you to help us how that feeds into that. And again, from the purely business side of things, we've had several sessions here with Charles talking about building sustainable businesses. Because you don't want to be here today and tomorrow you're out. Because a lot of resource has actually been invested in looking at the mortality rate of SMEs. But we don't pay too much attention to the mortality rate of, I don't know, should I call them farmers or peasants, businesses or initiatives? Because I'm sure in your experience, Dennis, as you deal with these smallholder farmers, you'll find people will tell you, me, I'll never grow tomatoes again.
Yes.
I've gone into this. So you can consider that as a mortality of a business in a way. So the sustainability element, how does this, you know, soil testing, knowing the characteristics of the soils, doing things in a fairly scientific and easy to measure way help the sustainability agenda?
Yeah, thank you. Now, the sustainability element, we need to look at it in a broader perspective, because we are looking at the sustainability of the farming enterprise, but also in terms of the whole environment, maybe in the country, Uganda, or in the whole world. So it is important for us to know that as we are growing, whatever we are growing has an effect on the entire environment. So as we prepare to do our farming, you need to be able to understand that, am I able to grow this crop this season and the coming season, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? If we do not have a long-term perspective of farming, then you will open up a new land, plant 3 seasons, and in the 4th season, the harvest keep going down. Then you think that the land is no longer productive, and you have to sell it to go into another business. So one of the key things that we need to look at is farming is a business and a going concern business. I need to be able to grow this year, the next year, and the other year. While soil testing might appear, you might appear that you are spending a cost this year, when we get into the 3rd, 4th year, you realize that the inputs that you are putting, the manure that you are adding, the fertilizers that you are adding, they keep in the soil. So in the 4th year, in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, you'll find you're applying less.
Yes.
Because like we said, too many nutrients are not good for your crops. So you also need to maintain that balance. If you are thinking long term, maybe 5 years, you will test this season. The testing is periodic. You have to keep doing the tests. But the amount of nutrients that you are applying, most likely they will keep reducing over time, because what you actually put, it is still in your soil. That is one. Now, secondly, there are things that we cannot control. The rainfall duration. It used to be 4 months, maybe reduced to 3 months. With time it will become 2 months. So you must be able to grow your maize in those 2 months to make sure that the maize has germinated, grown, flowered, and it is ready for harvest by the time the drought comes. The only way you can do it, the only way you can solve that is by putting a nutrient at the planting. As it is putting the stem, you add. As it is flowering, you put another one, so that you can quicken. In the developed countries, they are able to grow maize to feed cows in 3 months. How they do it is, at planting they put, after 4 weeks they put, after 8 weeks they put, and the crop is able to grow for harvest before the winter comes. So we need to actually think about long term, and then also think in terms of the money that we are spending.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Charles,
Yes.
farming as a going concern.
Very good. Sustainability issues are very key in this business of agriculture. And largely because today, as a nation, we are no longer saying coffee is for Bugisu, coffee is for Western Uganda, coffee is for Central Uganda.
Yes.
We are now saying coffee can be anywhere in the country. But that statement must be affirmed through proper scientific ways, and one of those is soil testing. We have got two types of coffee. There's Arabica, and then we have got the Robusta. Now, as you do the testing of your soil, you'll be able to say, here actually I'm better off with this kind of a crop. And because you've selected it right, it's going to give you good the results. Right output. And because of that, the opportunity cost of abandoning groundnuts, cotton, is no longer an issue. You just say, give me coffee. My soils speak to that message. The climate speaks to that message, and I'm headed for coffee. So you do the opportunity cost with science. And in business, there's always an opportunity cost for every resource. So you optimize that particular choice. Then secondly, when you have selected a particular crop, you spend a lot of time mastering on how it performs. Agronomic practices, pest control, disease control, marketing aspects, quality aspects. You don't want to spend a lot of time doing that, and then later you discover my soil actually does not warrant me to be in this space. Then you begin to go into another crop. So if you want a sustainable intervention, something farmers go in long term, just beware that they are going in there while sacrificing everything else, but also trying to master what it means to be in that space. Thirdly, sustainability is also affirmed because, as he said, the third aspect of soil testing is you go and check how is the crop performing with the applications I've done. If the crop seems to be putting on too many leaves and therefore it might not give enough fruits or whatever, you need to reduce the application of a particular nutrient. If the crop is indicating still certain level of deficiency, you're able again to add more. Now at that point you just say, now I know this is space and I'm going to remain right here. So surely it is time for us to move away from those old days where they will just tell you, know, sandy soils are good for groundnuts. Sandy, yes, but you have been extracting the nutrients from that sandy soil for a long time. Are you returning them? Sandy, yes, but what extent is the water runoff not removing the nutrients we're talking about here? So that issue of using ice just to determine the nutrient component of the soil, it's time to depart from it.
I hear you.
And the forces that are forcing us to go there are real global forces. You must compete in the international market. You can't just say, this is the Ugandan pineapple, it's very delicious, very good, fine. But at what price? You are here having a miserable plant and you're bringing it to me just because of the word Ugandan. It can't work.
Or because you're a youth group.
Exactly.
Well, viewers, we're looking at climate smart agriculture, and the aspect we've decided to illuminate is the one on soil testing. And you can see the discussion is actually, you know, feeding into other aspects, you know, the nutrients in the soil, aspects of productivity, and the aspect of sustainability. Now, you can be part of this discussion. We have the expert in the studio, actually the experts. We have Charles from Enterprise Uganda, he's our business coach. And then we have Dennis Imbisiwe from Jaba Engineering. He's quite grounded in the area of soil testing. And of course, you know, the issues that surround that particular aspect. Now, Dennis, I want to move on to, because as we are doing all this, we are appreciating the fact that the environment or the entire ecosystem under which we operate as farmers is changing. Much more beyond sometimes factors out of our control. You talked about, of course, intermittent rains. The drought or the sun is becoming more at us nowadays. You know, even when you look at Europe, the last winter season was extremely brutal. You know, the summers are you know, extremely hot.
Yeah.
And the discussion on climate change and also doing climate sensitive agriculture has seemed to center so much about saving the world than actually saving the farmer or the household. So I want you to bring in that particular aspect, and that brings me to the aspect of profitability, because that one is appreciated more at an individual level.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is, this is one of the things we tell our farmers when we are doing the training, especially on climate smart agriculture. The climate change is not about saving the entire world. It is actually about saving yourself on the garden where you're planting. When you mulch, you will conserve the ecosystem of the soil down there. The heat will not get into your soil. It will get there, but not so much. So meaning that you actually have, you retain your water.
Yeah.
The organisms under there, they become active, so they are able to break down the mulch and the other organic matter for you to have more nutrients, meaning you'll spend less on the external fertilizers, because your soil will be you'll be fertile naturally. So most of the practices that we talk about, they only save the world in aggregation. The way we always tell farmers that Uganda can only be rich if us as individuals are rich. If only one person is rich and the rest of us are not as rich, you'll not have anything. So still with climate change, the individual gardens, they'll conserve water, you'll have more microorganisms in the soil, you'll have them storing organic carbon and carbon dioxide in the soil. So when we add the 8 million households in the country, you'll find you have saved so much carbon, you have retained so much water, we have produced so much quality coffee. So the aspect of us saving the environment and adapting to climate change is the additionality of each and every individual, the practices they are using on their individual farms. When we produce more, then it means we have to till less land. So the practices are for the individuals, they are for the benefit of the individual. It is only when we aggregate the impact that it becomes national and becomes global.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Before I bring in Charles, viewers, you can be part of this discussion as usual. I'm going to request my producer to flash that WhatsApp number. Of course, we have the experts in the house. You can forward your questions. We are looking at climate smart agriculture, and we are paying special attention to the aspect of understanding the soils where you put that seed, and that would actually be a very smart business move, in as much as it will be a smart agricultural production or productivity move. Charles, the aspect of profitability out of these practices being personalized than not just a community thing.
You know, we mentioned the various aspects of what soil testing can result in. We talked about sustainability, productivity, and then profitability. Profitability sits in the center. Anything that's not profitable, either you are going to be subsidized by the state or by other world economic powers for it to remain there, because sustainability cannot ride without you being able to pay your way out in the marketplace. So if you are not able to pay your way in the marketplace, the fellows that you are employing must get salaries. The family that you have must be dressed and be taken to school. And in the school where you are taking the children to, they don't ask you, by the way, to what extent are you preserving environment before you can admit your child to P1? They are simply saying, our school fees is 1 million. How you get it? Go and sort it out, but bring 1 million. So I bring this angle out there because everything we do on the show, we are talking about business. So profitability with climate change, with soil testing, are intertwined in many ways. One of them is, by you knowing exactly which mineral is missing, you apply the one that is missing. You don't just carry bags because you went to a fertilizer shop or you got a lot of dung and you're just pouring it there. You apply what is needed. Number two, the quantity of you also apply will reflect exactly the need for that particular crop or plant. So again, because profitability is always matching two things, revenues and expenses. So if we are talking about expenses, quantities matter. Issues to do with recycling. Remember what I gave about the sunflower plant? It's a heavy feeder. The thing comes out so tall. The leaves are so large. The stem is so fat. But all this part here is not going to be taken to the market. It's going to be left somewhere. But through this effort here, you can now say, okay, this plant has extracted all this from this soil, this area here. I'm going to leave it all to remain here. Cut it, let it remain here. So instead of burning it, let it be cut and let it remain there. At that point, you've just cut on your inputs. Profitability will go up. Your expenses have gone down. Then, of course, you know, the world is beginning to take this issue of a sustainable planet seriously. And nations are signing up protocols where they will be saying, we will take your loan and we will obey climate-related laws. The loans we are going to be getting, the money we are going to be getting to grow and sustain our operations will come with very stringent climate or smart agriculture requirements. The earlier we begin to go there on our own, using the other things I first talked about, the better. But then we begin to become, as a nation, a highly attractive destination for smart agriculture financing.
Actually, on that note, Charles, I know that a number of banks, the big players in that space, are now appointing what they call sustainability managers.
There you are.
And it's becoming a condition, even where they draw funding. To ensure that before they give funding to a major project or a big project, it has to align.
Yeah, because the reality is the world is feeling the effect so much that diseases are breaking out because of the things. Some of the things we are eating are all related to our mismanagement of the world. The way some of the organisms have disappeared, that used to balance the entire ecosystem. We are now saying it is time to fix this thing, and we are not going to simply pray and say, let's hand it to God. We have to fix this thing while we are still on this planet.
Beautiful.
So you will be forced to obey.
I hear you.
Yes.
Indeed. Viewers, I've seen the questions have started coming in. I'll again request my producer to flash that number for more of you to see it and send in your questions, comments, or suggestions. We are talking about climate smart agriculture, and we are looking at the aspect of soil testing and the properties therein, you know, and how this feeds into productivity, sustainability, and productivity. So Dennis, I'll come to you. The issues we've discussed, you know, at the end of the day, if they are to have really good impact, they need to feed or inform policy. So how does your effort and what you do, how can it help, you know, drive or support or inform the agricultural policy of the country? Because sometimes, you know, you pity also the policymakers. They may not be informed about, if I'm to support agriculture, where do I start? What do I support?
And many times they think there's inputs. Then they just say, please come for your inputs and then come for credit.
Yeah. So basically, at Jaba Engineering, we come from a technology side of business, where we are using the laboratory instruments to actually measure, and then now this is a specific one for agriculture. But we have, one is awareness of the farmers, for the farmers to know, I'm not just going to use any input, any fertilizer. So if you are bringing fertilizer, I'll ask you, why this specific type and why this quantity? In the places where we have been, we currently have labs in Mubende, Iganga, Guru, Mbare, and then here in Kampala. But in the places where we have been training farmers, even when people come asking promoting their fertilizers, they ask them why this specific type and why this specific quantity.
Yes.
So for us, that is now a bottom-up approach.
Yes.
That the farmer down is aware that I cannot use anything. I need to know what specific type and what specific quantity. Further to that, we have developed a database. So all our soil test results, we actually feed them in a database. And in this database, you know, you're getting the information about the farmer, the nutrients in that soil. So we are able to, over time, as we get this support to do more tests and we get more data in our database, so we are able to say, to put like the nutrient distribution profiles around the whole country, to say areas around this area, the phosphorus is bad, areas around this area, the average pH is bad. So we have an insight, we have some bit of insight that in this area, the pH is generally bad, this area, although the data is still not sufficient for us to get to that level. Then thirdly, for this specific farmer, because remember we're picking a farmer, this is a sample this season, next year, so we are also able to generate for a specific location over time. He has been implementing these practices. How is his nutrient distribution growing or getting depleted over time? This means that this particular person will either adopt those practices or whenever we are advising these practices for some other person, we are now more confident because we have the data. When you measure it, you know it. We've just finished a project, soil testing project in 57 districts with the Ministry of Agriculture under the Agriculture Cluster Development Project, where we sampled 7,200 farmers. And these ones, it was a pilot, but it gives the ministry an insight of what is the problem. The problem is mainly phosphorus. The problem is mainly pH. Potassium is not as bad as then. Now, as they are making decisions, as they are making policy, as they are deciding what to promote, do we promote inorganic, do we promote organic? If we are going to establish a fertilizer factory, our problem is mainly phosphorus. So we have at least some data on which to base. So basically the database and then our work with the smallholder farmers. And because we are working to promote the farmer. The government is looking for the farmer. The business community who are buying produce, they are buying from the farmer. Even as a Jaba, we are with this specific farmer. So when we go to the farmer, we don't go alone. We go with the extension system in the area. We tell them, we now have a lab in Mubende, so you no longer have to suffer so much taking your sample elsewhere. If a farmer wants testing, it is available here. So the extension system is now also getting to know that these services are available, the kit is portable, it is digital, it produces results, then it is easier for us now as the policy makers to do the other decisions.
I hear you.
Thank you.
Very important, Charles. Yes.
Yes, I like what Dennis is saying here, and especially this new concept of soil testing. A Ugandan farmer never imagined he needed to test soil. Never. That is totally out of the norm. But one could say the same about 10 years ago, where we said there's no need to buy a packed seed. I have my seed of last season. I'm just going to shell and plant it. Today, as the season comes on board, people are saying, where can I get genuine seed? We've gone there because we've promoted the productivity of a good seed. So, listening to Dennis, I see a population beginning to say, wow, I never knew that soil can also get exhausted. Wow, I never knew that soil can be treated, but the treatment is not just by looking at using your naked eye. It needs to be done in some professional way. What am I driving at here? I'm looking at a new concept, but something now that's almost urgent, which needs government to streamline very, very strongly. The likes of Java engineering, in my view, are very few. And I believe there should be a way we could begin to form, like now we have got a seed, either seed association or seed whatever in the country. Similarly, we need to get to a point when we can begin saying, farmers are going to appreciate soil testing. But how do we affirm confidence in a particular outfit, that this outfit is accessible but not a quack? I don't know what Dennis has done to just make sure that he comforts the people who go there to really know that when they get to him, it works. But he has just shared one of those things. One of them is demos. One of them is demos. But I think there could be another one.
So, of course, like with all technologies, it is important that, especially for lab testing, it is important that your results are credible.
Yes.
We use the word credible. So, and in testing, we usually have 3 pillars. The pillar number 1 is the method that you're using. The method must be traceable and internationally recognized. So the methods that we are using are actually have been developed by Palintest, whom we represent here in the country. And
and the farm located where?
The farm is located in they are the manufacturers in the United Kingdom. They've been doing research over 70 years. Actually, this year, last year in June, they released a new technology now. Compared to the kit that we were using before, we now have another technology. So in terms of the method we are using a UK-backed technology. It has been referred against the different other technologies. That is one. Number 2 is the people, the method, because that is the method, but now we talk about the people. Who are you using? Dennis is an electrical engineer who has an instrumentation background. So I had to bring on board other people, other staff who have done soil testing at their university, who have been doing this soil testing. And they are the people we are using. I've told you we have different laboratories. So these are the people we bring on board, we train, and then they are able to pass and then be able to do the soil testing. In terms of the quality management system, we got our ISO 9000 certification last year. In 2022, we got our ISO 9000 certification. And this one now looks at the entire spectrum. Your equipment, is it calibrated? Is it of the right standard? Your people, are they competent? Are you keeping the data, the traceability? If I give you a certificate of analysis and you come back, am I able to trace through the chain and make sure that the test result that came out of the machine is actually what is on the certificate? So we are ISO 9000 certified. We train staff. Some of our staff has been taken on by NARO to do, like, you train your staff and then they go for interviews and they've been taken on. For us, that is, it shows that what we are doing, if our staff are able to do interviews and they are being taken on, it means that it's an affirmation that actually what we are doing is
the right thing.
Yes, just to complete my submission, and I'm happy that Java is indeed one of those that you can call a good model for promoting this extremely important aspect of soil productivity. The other aspect that I thought needed to come out again and say on a government scale, you will appreciate that the penetration of the insurance products in this country has been extremely slow. Much more when you go to agriculture. But what government has done is to start putting in on annual basis 5 billion and working with the insurance firms. In this case, the peers would be the likes of Java. And then saying, here is the money. This is an investment. We don't want to call it a cost. It's an investment in a better Uganda. We're putting just a modest 5 billion. But please, you as Java, stretch this money. Let as many farmers as possible make better use of soil for the benefit of the planet, for the benefit of the communities. If government can pick up some of this, then a concept like this, for which it is urgent,
I hear you,
would really take off at a faster pace.
Great, great, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. On that note, viewers, we're going to take a very short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be picking your questions and suggestions, and they'll be forwarded to the experts, and we get those answers after this break.
Does fertilizer spoil soils? Yes, fertilizers do spoil soils. When they are misused, it has a side effect. Just like when you're sick, then you overdose yourself. Even if it's a quarter acre or a half an acre, you have to test. So long as you have the mindset of getting good yields out of it or using fertilizers. We have a lot of climate changes. So now we are encouraging them, since now we cannot predict the climate, we are training them on climate smart agriculture. What do you do when there is much drought? What do you do when there is that prolonged drought besides soil testing?
Dear viewers, welcome back. We are again proceeding with the Business X-ray show, and today our topic is on climate smart agriculture, and we are paying special attention to the aspect of soil testing. You need to know your soils, to know the ingredients it has, and of course the deficiencies, and that's what feeds into productivity, how productive your land is going to be, and of course relatedly sustainability and profitability. Now in the house I have Dennis from Jaba Engineering. I have Charles from Enterprise Uganda, and Dennis has walked us through, you know, the journey of why it's important to test that soil and how that then sustains productivity, but then also grows the profitability, you know, of different players within the agricultural subsector, starting with the person at the farm. Now, Charles, you are wrapping up something before we go to the questions. I have quite a number of questions coming in from the viewers. And viewers, I would like to implore you to actually send in your questions using the WhatsApp number on screen. It's going to be, flashed on screen so that, you know, Dennis here can help us answer some of those questions. And those with a business purely, perspective, Charles is going to pick them, and we see how to really respond to those. We understand how important agriculture is to this country. We are an agro-based economy. Even the industries we have are mainly agro-based industries. So Charles, as we wrap this up, to go into the questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a very good observation today, and the message is that if there be one thing that any person who wants to master, to succeed in business, it is to begin to appreciate key success factors for success in the space where you are. And to get the key success factors, one of the sources of wisdom is experts.
Yes.
Talk to the experts. We've just seen that in agriculture, it's no longer just about the seed. That brings you the genetics. It's the seed, it is the farming, agronomy itself, it is the looking at the soil, other inputs, all those aspects. As you walk to the marketplace, you must embrace them. But for each of those permutations, different areas of your key success factors, deal with experts.
I hear you.
The days of looking at soil and just saying this is a sandy soil, it must be having these nutrients, those days are done.
For potatoes.
Yes. They are done. The days also of saying that this part of the country can only grow this kind of a crop, again, those days are done. Let's go to the lab. Let the lab tell us what we can do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Going to the viewers, quite a number of comments and questions have come in. I have a comment here. Someone is saying soil testing is quite new to the local farmer, the grassroots. Government has to come in and make some sort of agronomic practice tied into such programs as operation wealth creation.
Well put. Well put indeed. Extremely correct.
Okay.
And especially so when we are saying
Yes.
climate issues we are talking about, do not just talk about the rivers and the forests alone. By the time people are going for the rivers and the forests, the soils have caused them to go there. Government must see these interventions as an investment in saving its nation.
Beautiful. I have Baram here is saying, thank you for the wonderful discussion. Smart agriculture as a business. My question, how can we encourage farmers to utilize organic fertilizers as opposed to inorganic? This is because our markets are full of non-genuine products. I don't know whether you can pick that, Dens.
Yeah. Number one is different organic manure have also different nutrients. The only issue with the organic manure is that the nutrients are in small quantities. So you need actually to get the farmers to go for the organic manure with sufficient quantities.
Okay.
And you will need to apply organic manure over time because the nutrients in the organic manure, they are little, and then they also become available over time. So you have to be patient. For our soils that are not yet as bad, organic manure will actually help. So you only choose the right type of organic manure, because remember you also have to test organic manure. The manure is as good as who gave it to you was eating. So if the chicken was eating bran only, it will also give you chicken manure that has this. So you also need to actually be able to test the manure. And just the way you know that DAP has 46% of phosphorus, you also need to be able to know that organic manure has 4%, so that we know how much to apply.
So it's not just cow dung, it's what's in the dung.
Yeah, it's what is inside there.
Great. Then I have someone, Joseph is from Serere, is saying, please advise, how can I access soil testing services? And I think you can address all Ugandans. How can they access the service?
That's key.
Right now, as Jaba Soil Testing Labs, we have laboratories in Bushenyi, in Mubende, in Guru, in Imbare, in Iganga, and Kampala here. We have a network of soil sampling agents. I think this one is very key, that when we are picking the sample, we pick it in a certain way so that it is representative of this area. So it is good that the person who is picking the sample knows how to pick the sample. In this way, if you give us a bad sample, we'll give you bad results. So we have soil sampling agents around the area. In Serere, in almost the 57 SCDP districts, we already have soil sampling agents in the different sub-counties. So you only need to call us, and then we'll give you the number of the soil sampling agent near you. He will come and pick the sample. For Serere, we'll be able to do the test in Imbare, and in 3 to 5 days, we guarantee you'll have your results.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Then I have someone here is saying, good afternoon. Thank you for the program. I'm a very good farmer for maize, but the prices during the harvest period are very low and discouraging. Please comment on the cost implications of soil testing versus the size of one's land. Is it possible to have it done for community at large, or it's only individuals? Thank you. This is Anthony from Chiandongo.
Yeah, thank you. Now, the cost of soil testing for like maize, we'll do pH and NPK. That we call that one the basic test for the average farmer, which is 50 to 60,000 shillings. And in this case, we are talking of picking a sample between in 1 to 2 acres.
Yes.
We pick one sample.
Yes.
You realize that even within the same garden, there is a variability of nutrients. So we will use the physical characteristics of the soil to say this soil seems to have the same nutrients. Okay. So it is not possible that we are going to test for the whole community or the whole sub-county. We'll still need to pick 2 to 3 acres. We pick one sample. We test until maybe we finish for all the farmer
group. He's also referring to the aspect of overhead. Somebody's in Kiriadongo, but then you have to transport that sample to the nearest testing lab. So when there are many as a community, probably it gets easier. But that is also with the assumption that the community is also ready for testing.
For testing the soil, which means awareness.
Yes.
Which is what we are doing, by the
Exactly.
way, with support
Exactly.
of partners like ABI and everyone.
We are actually working with some communities in Chiriandongo. We have farmer groups in Chiriandongo whom we are working with. We have demonstration gardens there. We have people who can actually do the sampling, and then we'll send them back the report and they will explain to you. So for some of these areas, Chiriandongo, Oyam, Noya, Rira, we have the people, we have the network. So we'll only do the sample, they'll do the sampling, we're going to do the testing and the report writing, and then we give them back the report to the agents who will explain to the farmer what they need to do.
Indeed.
So the key is done in the lab, but the sampling and the explanation of the report is done
in the
for
field.
this person.
Beautiful. Then I have Martin. Martin is from Queenie. He's saying, Charles and team, thanks for the program. Concern, is there any local method a farmer can test soil than expensive technocrats local farmers may not afford? Interesting one. Charles, that speaks to...
Yeah, of course there are local methods of when you see this weed, you know this soil is fertile. But I also want to clarify on the perception that actually soil testing is expensive.
Yes.
In 2 acres of land, you are looking at getting around 50 bags. In the harvest season, a kilo of maize was 1,000 shillings. So 50 bags, those are 500 kilos. 500 kilos, that is times 1,000, that's 500,000. Now, 500,000, so that's actually 5 million, I think. 5 million. It's 5 million from the 500 bags. That's 5 million. So if you are doing a test of 50,000, maybe including the sampling cost, it will come to 70,000.
Okay.
But you're doing 70,000 to be guaranteed that you'll get the 5 million. Or even if it was 50%, you get 2.5.
Yes.
Rather than for somebody who's not going to do the test, he will get the cost of plowing, the cost of seed, the cost of weeding, to still get half, of, maybe a quarter of the yield. Because in the demonstration gardens we're having in Uganda, people are getting 6-7 bags in an acre. In our demonstration garden, the list that we got was 15 bags.
Beautiful.
So
now, I have quite a number of questions for you, Dennis. Many people asking. And of course, when someone asks, others benefit. That's why I want you know, us to handle as many as we can. And I think that also speaks to Dennis's question. Maybe you can add a little. He's saying, very educative show. My inquiry is about how much it costs to access soil testing services per acre. And of course, the other may not be.
Yeah, first of all, it depends on the crop you're growing, because for different crops we test different nutrients. But for most of our basic crops, coffee, maize, beans, we test, the cost of testing is 50 to 60,000 shillings per sample. And we pick a sample in 1 to 2 acres. So you can say 2 acres, I'm charging you 60,000.
Okay, beautiful. Then someone is asking, when testing the soil, how much area do you consider? Do you pick a sample every square meter, every square mile, etc.?
No, we pick a sample in, depending on the topography of the area. The average is 2 acres, we pick 1 sample.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I have Diego KK from Kanungu. He's saying, do you encourage use of artificial, inorganic fertilizers or organic fertilizers? What would you encourage?
As a soil testing lab, we provide information. Every farmer has their market where they are selling their produce. And it is the market that determines. But for us, what we do is we give you information that this is the amount of nutrients in your soil. So you determine that for me to go organic, I need so many kilograms of manure. For if I'm doing an organic, I need so many bags of fertilizers. So the market, we leave the farmer to use the market to make the decision. So, but we support both types. Whether you are doing organic or whether you are doing inorganic, you will be able to do testing. Then we'll tell you, for this organic manure, you need so much. For inorganic, you need this type and this quantity.
Beautiful. I have Juma from Nepak. That's Karamoja area. He's saying, thank you for the show. My question is, some regions in Uganda have prolonged droughts like Karamoja. How can such places gain this kind of knowledge, you know, to change our farming practices? Now, he's specifically interested in the Karamoja region.
Yes. In our experience on our demonstration gardens, we had one demonstration garden in Oyam. Actually, when you apply the nutrients in a time, in the specific quantities and in a timely manner, you are able to have maize mature in around 80 days. So that caters for the issues of like if the drought set in early. So one, you need to have the good agronomic practices that preserve moisture in those areas, but then also the availability of nutrients will help your crop to grow faster. And then for perennial crops like coffee, coffee that is well looked after, if by the time the drought sets in, it is looking good. It is able to sustain itself through the dry season, because the nutrients in the leaves can actually be used during the dry season. This is what the experts tell us, that the plant, just like a human being, has fat, and it's able to survive.
Mobilize that fat.
To use that fat during the season, the time when you don't have food. So the plant that is also well looked after is able to use those nutrients during the times of drought.
To be more resilient.
Yeah, to be resilient.
Beautiful. Yeah. Then I have someone here is asking, can a farmer deliver their samples to your lab, an individual farmer?
Yes, I've answered that question a little bit. That we would like our soil sampling agents to first visit you for the first time, at least to show you where to pick the sample. Because we do not want you to bring a sample that is contaminated with manure, or maybe there is an ant here and it has something. So soil sampling is also a key. So we want you to use one of our soil sampling agents. In the subsequent times, you can actually bring the sample. But for the first time, we would like to have a sample that has been picked by one of our trained agents.
Beautiful. Someone in Kanungu is saying, do you plan to actually cover them as well in Kanungu?
Yes, of course, our plan is to be in the entire country, but right now at the Kanungu District Local Government actually bought a soil testing kit. We are supporting them to do soil testing. The district agriculture office, we have trained some of their staff. They bought a soil testing kit. So we support them. So if somebody is in Kanungu, he can contact the district production officer, and I'm sure they will help them, because we are supplying them reagents. We keep going there to monitor their equipment. So in Kanungu, they are already covered. But in the other areas, they'll have to work through our sampling agents.
I have Mr. Pio here. He's saying, thank you, Dennis and team, for the discussion. Now he's saying, isn't this system for the rich farmers? Can someone from Chirambi or Mukashansha, Mitoma, with a small piece of land practice this? Maybe you need to demystify that again.
I would actually say soil testing is for farmers who want to become rich. So if you really want to become rich, then there's almost no option, because you need to know what is in your soil. You need to put in that input, then to know what the manure. There is a tendency that farmers must be poor. Which is very wrong, because in Uganda, with our soil, with our environment, we should be able to test our soil so that every farmer is rich.
And just to add to that, I want to say that chicken today have got medicines and drugs you can use to cure chicken. A chicken is kept by the poorest of the poorest. But sacrifice one hen to get the right drugs to treat the chicken. Equally sacrifice half a bag of maize crop of the previous season to get your science right for the soil. So this thing of getting rich using others, or fearing to get rich and labeling yourself a poor person, nobody is genetically meant to be poor.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Dennis, I see there are still quite a number of questions, but time is not our best ally. So I'll request you to give the viewers your number so that the discussion can go on.
Yeah, so like we said, we are located here in Kampala, and then in Mbale, Mubende, Iganga, Mbale, Iganga, then Bushenya as well. Our number is 0392 24 24 88, 0392 24 24 88. That is the office number. And then my number is 0782 38 48 81. 0782 38 48 81. The Airtel one is 0701, the same number.
Great. And I think Dr. Kalist Tindi from Ministry of Water and Environment has got it.
Yeah.
He would like to have you and Charles. He's saying Ministry of Water and Environment are organizing a conference on climate resilience and everything. So he would like to have you in touch. I think Charles will give his number as he wraps up, you know, his views about this discussion we've had today.
Very good indeed. I want to tell the country that at the Business X-ray, we value one thing, knowledge. And that knowledge, when it's applied and shared, it is wisdom.
Yeah.
The good book says, knowledge is better than silver, and wisdom is better than gold. We've just seen here that in farming, it's not just one type of knowledge that matters.
Yeah.
You need to have a rounded spectrum to make it work as a business. And clearly today where we're going, you can never be hidden in Kanungu and imagine that the man in Brazil is not watching you. Whatever you are producing, the Irish, the onions, the Brazilian is also doing the same, but with a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, he will wipe you out of the market space. So as Enterprise Uganda and as ABI and all the other partners that are sponsoring this show, we are keen to give education to this country and make Ugandans make the best out of their businesses, be it in agriculture or be it in any sector. And my telephone number is 0772 699 808.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Dennis, your last word in a minute.
My last word is to urge all farmers to strive for profit, because it is the only way. If the farming is not profitable, then you'll not be sustainable. With time, the farming will no longer be profitable for you, so you cannot continue doing a loss-making enterprise. And then lastly, in all these labs, we have been supported by ABI. We are very grateful to them. When we started, it was a new technology, but they were able to recognize very early on how important it was going to be. Yes. And we are really grateful to them that they have given us an opportunity to serve Ugandans and grow agriculture to the next level.
I hear you.
Thank you.
On that note, viewers, we thank you for being part of the show. It's been the Business X-ray show, of course, with partners, Enterprise Uganda, ABI, Ministry of Finance, and of course, the partners that we bring to actually share the experiences. We thank you, Dennis. And I'm very sure farmers have picked quite a lot from this. The key message is that things have changed. A number of realities that we are contending with in the different spaces, including agriculture, are beyond our control. But it's something we can do to actually adapt. Because we can't say that we'll cease to live simply because things are getting tougher. We just need to do things a different way. And today, I'm very sure the discussion on climate smart agriculture, focusing on soil testing, has had quite, an enlightenment to us who have ambitions in farming of how best we can do it. Now, I've been your host, Charles Boji. Until next time, I'd like to wish you a very good evening. God bless.
apologies.